Welcome to the Surrogacy Warrior podcast with your host, Kimberly Surratt. Join us as we dive deep into the heart of surrogacy, offering insights, sharing stories, and providing advice. Our mission is to illuminate every corner of surrogacy, from the emotional roller coasters and legal battles to the triumphant moments of birth and beyond. Surrogacy Warrior is more than just a podcast. It's a community for anyone touched by or interested in the transformative power of surrogacy. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, lawyersforfamilies.com. Now here's the host of Surrogacy Warrior, Kimberly Surratt.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Surrogacy Warrior, the podcast where we navigate the incredible journey of surrogacy and assisted reproduction and everything that comes with that. I'm Kim Surratt. I'm your host and passionate advocate for creating families through these remarkable paths. And today we are talking to Lynn Goldman, who is a fellow with the Academy of Adoption and Assisted Reproduction Attorneys, which you might be starting to see a theme. Those tend to be the lawyers I go to for the podcast. There's a reason for that. One day we'll talk about what it takes to become a fellow with the Academy. It's a lot. You have to be vetted and you have to have a lot of experience, which means we know automatically that Lynn has all of that. She's extremely dedicated to the Academy. She volunteers like I do with way too many other organizations, and we'll let her mention what a few of those are. But she's also a fellow advocate. She works with her legislature and lobbies for good. And so that's part of the reason I wanted her on today, so that I could introduce her to the world at large and as a fellow advocate. Lynn, what did I miss? Any big things? How long have you been practicing?
Sure.
That type of stuff.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so excited to be on your podcast. So I've been practicing for 28 years and about 12 years as a fertility and adoption attorney. And I'm also the president and founder of the Georgia Fertility Network, which is an advocacy organization to advocate for pro-fertility laws here in Georgia.
Big difference between my lobbying in Nevada versus Georgia, for kind of obvious reasons. For people who are listening, you probably understand that. So we live in two different worlds. But how long has your network been in place?
Sure. We've been in place for 2 years. Last year was our first legislative season, and we were able to get a couple of laws passed in Georgia. And basically in Georgia, unlike, Nevada and other states, we have very few fertility laws in Georgia. So
huge need. And I mean, okay, so let's talk about this, because I know you saw a need, you saw a hole, a gaping hole where you needed a group to do it. And I think we've talked about lobbying and advocacy on this podcast quite a bit, but why create an organization for it? How did it help you to have one?
Sure. So the way that what happened was, I have a friend who is a legislator in Georgia, and she called me and sent me a text of a bill that was getting proposed. And she said, take a look at this. If you don't like it, come down to the Capitol. It's being heard in a committee in an hour. And
we beg people to get more involved and advocate. And unfortunately, those are the timelines at times. But right.
Advocating on the fly was not the best move, but I did. And so I went down there and testified, and actually had to go back 2 more times to go and testify. And what I realized was, that's not how we should be responding. We should be a more coordinated effort. So I reached out to doctors at all the fertility clinics, some of their attorneys, a judge, and said, we need to do this better. And we need to respond to bad bills and propose our own bills that are more positive. And so we formed a group. And so our group is made up of, all fertility stakeholders in Georgia: mental health, doctors, lawyers, agencies, and then also patients. And we really rely on patients to be willing to tell legislators their stories and to show up down in the Capitol and rally and really put themselves out there,
Right.
to be willing to
Yeah,
tell their stories.
it just occurred to me because I know Nevada's got a similar group. There's quite a few of those groups that have kind of developed out of the work that Resolve's doing, or several of the other big organizations, not always attached to Resolve, of course, but and my brain was just going to wonder how many states were still missing that in.
Um,
Um, I'm
there's
sure
a
you don't have
great
the
sort
answer to
of
this. This is just me thinking out loud about needing to get any states that don't have this the help to organize like
yeah.
this.
Well, one thing after sort of forming this, and this just came about sort of this year, there is an organization or a coalition of like-minded organizations around the country that are part of State Strong, which is just a coalition of different states with advocacy groups, which is helpful because as a person that this is not my real job, this is my volunteer job, and I've never really been a legislative advocate before. So forming a new organization and being an advocate like this is new to me. So getting help from other like-minded organizations is hugely helpful. So I'm not recreating the wheel all the time.
Right. Similar to, I mean, we created the Insurance Access and Equity Alliance, which was for lobbying specifically for insurance issues within the fertility world. But yeah, I mean, so you create your organization, you get it going, you're still new. I mean, you've got 2 years under your belt, but you've already had some success by having it, right?
Yes, we have. And so we actually decided early on, which was, something that we thought we could do ourselves, but I really think the right decision that we made was to hire a lobbyist early on. And so we fundraised to be able to pay for a lobbyist. And our lobbyist is someone that already was familiar in this space. She also lobbies for our OBGYN association here in Georgia. So she was already familiar with the space. And we hired her, and she's been a huge help in us, navigating down at the Capitol things that we wouldn't know otherwise. And so our two big successes, well, I would say three actually, not to brag, but um,
Three's big. It sounds little to maybe somebody with inexperience with legislative issues, but three's huge.
three's huge, especially, in our environment in Georgia. And so two of them are, one is being able to support a bill that provides insurance coverage, mandated insurance coverage for fertility preservation for patients with cancer, sickle cell, or lupus. So it's not for everybody. It doesn't cover everybody doing fertility preservation, but it does provide coverage for those three conditions. And sometimes people say, well, why those three conditions? In Georgia, sickle cell, we have one of the highest rates of sickle cell in the country in Georgia. And so that's one of the reasons. And then we also have Emory in Georgia that treats a lot of cancer patients. And so that's one of the reasons. And then one of our second success is to be able to get an IVF access bill passed in Georgia. And so in that, we proposed a bill that we had asked to be submitted, and it was much more involved. And what we ended up with was basically a 1 or 2 line law, which is not exactly as robust as we wanted, but it was the first law that ever protected access to IVF in Georgia. So that was our second success. And then our third success was there was a bill that was in committee that would have made any abortion or IVF impossible in Georgia. And so it would have made embryos people and given them personhood. And so we were able to help that bill not get past that committee. So that was our third success.
Yeah. Defeating bills is just as important as passing bills,
Yeah,
especially when you're advocating. Now, I kind of want to talk about your sickle cell part of it,
sure.
only because I think it's an extremely good example of doing what's right on a state by state basis,
Yeah.
right? Because like you said, you have one of the highest rates in
Yeah.
your state, whereas in another state, it might be something else. But I think, I mean, I want to talk a little bit about that, about doing what's right for your state and making choices based on or what you think was good for Georgia versus what others may want you to pass?
Yeah. So, one of our legislators asked us, why only these three conditions? Why not for anybody that needs fertility preservation? And while I said to her, I said, we would love it to cover for anybody.
Give us the world if you're going to give us the vote, right?
Right, we'll take it. I said, but we tried to start with, what we knew we could try to get past, and then we could build on it. And if we had opened up our bill to every type of person that needed fertility coverage, regardless of why they needed it, we would never have gotten that bill passed because our insurance lobbying group is just really powerful at the state level. And so we started with
they're extremely powerful at every single state, not just Georgia. Yeah.
And so we started with what we could get past and what we had already, talked with our insurance lobbyists that they would agree to and they wouldn't push back on. And so we were able to, at least get something passed that, that covered important things, but that we could build on.
Which was more important than having a failed bill, right? That did cover everything but failed, and you ended up with nothing at the end of it.
That's exactly right. And that is sort of I guess I would say our internal mantra is that we want to make sure that we are proposing bills that have a high likelihood of succeeding, and we'd rather it be more narrow focused and get, passed so that we can build on it than to shoot for the moon and get nothing.
Yeah, small bites at the apple.
Yeah.
Which I think we need, on a nationwide level, we need a lot more of that these days. I can tell you, my work in Nevada has always been that way. It's been one of two things. It's either been small bites at the apple or really mundane, off the radar things that have a huge impact to our industry, but aren't glaring in your face things that anybody cared about, right? They might have been big, but they're just so boring. No one cared. There is such a thing as great wins in advocacy and lobbying that are just procedural issues. Right? Changing deadlines. That can make such a difference to everybody in the industry.
Yeah. And sometimes some of our legislators don't understand how those sometimes little changes make big impacts.
Right. And I'm not sure, I think a lot of times others in our industry look at it and think, well, we didn't get this. But God, we got to take the wins right now and enjoy the daylights out of them.
Yeah. Especially in a very conservative Republican state like ours, when we get a win, it's even a bigger win to us.
It's huge. Yeah. And how has it been in terms of getting volunteer help, getting new people involved? Are you struggling? Has it been easy?
So one of the ways that we've tried to recruit, in particular, patients, is we've put up in all of the fertility clinics in Atlanta signs with QR codes. Do you want to talk to your legislator? Do you want to come and tell your story before a hearing? Do you want to donate? All the different ways. And then we also put out a quarterly email as well. And we also have coordinated with lots of other grassroots organizations within Georgia and the Southeast. And they put out our newsletters to their constituents as well. So I
love the QR codes in the clinics, asking patients for their stories and if they want to. That's okay. So everybody listening, put that on your checklist. It's something to do in every single state we should be doing. I love it. That's great. And then in terms of those actually helping you in the legislative building, other than stories from patients, have you had a hard time with professionals, or are they coming to the table?
No, I will say it's pretty amazing. All of our doctors are willing to come and talk about their work. Other lawyers are willing to talk. Patients are willing to talk. We even, we have 2 medical schools in Georgia, and we've even had doctors or doctors to be come and rally and be a part of it. So we haven't had an issue with getting people to tell their stories. Just for example, on that abortion bill that was heard, we had 45 people on a wait list to speak before the committee. So
Numbers work, people. That's another thing on the advocacy. Numbers work. It helps when people come out of the woodworks.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say numbers, but in particular, local numbers. Because one thing that was happening at that hearing is a lot of people wanted to speak that had come from other states in favor of that bill. And so our legislators kept saying, is there anybody here from Georgia? And the only people that really were there from Georgia were speaking out against that abortion bill. So I think that was powerful too.
That's another good pointer to keep out there. We go through that in Nevada a lot just because we tend to end up with a lot of Californians coming over wanting to influence our politics. They're real close. They're right over the border. But Nevadans don't respond really well to that. Nevadans are Nevadans, and you're right, they want to hear from their own constituents, and it's important. And that's another key topic we can talk about for a second too, just the national platforms and what national groups may want versus what you need at a state level, and a disparity in that with you and your advocacy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it was really helpful for me to get some support from different national organizations, but I also had to really keep in mind about what was our goal and what was doable in our state, because maybe what the national organizations might want, I believe in and I agree with, but I had to stick with what I know I could get past and build on it. And so that was really important to us as well. And I also had to be cognizant of what would allow our clinics to keep working and to keep serving patients. Because I would constantly go back to our doctors on our committee and say, if it's worded like this, do you feel like you can still do your job and still serve patients? And if the answer was yes, then I had to let some of the other things go to get something favorable past that. Again, I can build on and take bites at the apple.
Right. So at this time, so what do you need? What is your group looking at now? Like, what would help you grow or achieve more? We've got a platform for her right now, so donations, obviously, right? More volunteers, but what else?
Yeah, so I mean, for sure, donations, our donations go 100% to making sure that we have a lobbyist in place. That is critical to us. But I also think it's more patient stories, more people being willing to call their legislators and say, hey, I support House Bill X, Y, and Z. I think that is hugely important, because that was one thing that we heard from some of our legislators, that they were hearing from big pro-life groups, and were afraid to vote the other way because of how many constituents and people were calling them. And so we have to also be loud on the other side, and that takes volunteers. So I think that's really helpful. And so just being on our list, willing to be that kind of person that we can tap when in need, I think would be hugely helpful.
And how do they get on your list?
They can just go and find us on social media, on Instagram, Georgia Fertility Network, or GeorgiaFertilityNetwork.com is our website, and you can donate there. You can say that you want to volunteer, and any inquiry comes directly to me, so I'll get it.
Okay, great. And we'll make sure when we put the podcast out, we'll make sure everybody has those links, has the contact information, and we'll connect it back. Now let's step out of that for a second and talk about you as a lawyer, because I love our advocacy work, you and I, but we do have identities other than what we volunteer for, right?
That is very true. But sometimes it does feel like I get to do all my volunteer work, which I love. But yeah, my clients for sure need to come first.
And so if you do everything in the reproductive world, just like I do, anything surrogacy related, egg, embryo, sperm donation, all of it, right? And how do they get a hold of you through your practice if they want you as a lawyer?
Sure, absolutely. So our law firm is Claiborne, Fox, Bradley, Goldman, and we have been around over 30 years. My senior partner, Ruth Claiborne, she actually was able to do one of the first surrogacies in Georgia and one of the first same-sex adoptions in Georgia. So we're super proud of her. And she was a legislative advocate herself, so I'm kind of modeling after her, which is really nice to have that mentor. You can find our website at 𝐞𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐴BabyLaw.com. Or we're also on Instagram and Facebook at Claiborne Fox Bradley Goldman.
And I'll brag on Lynn a little bit too, because she's chairing the Art Resource Committee, Assisted Reproductive Technology Committee, Resource Committee with the Academy. And so they're creating all kinds of materials for the public, resources, and that information is getting onto the Academy's website as a result of Lynn's work. So, and a committee, but you're the one in front of me that I'm bragging on. So.
All right. Great town halls, and if you are wanting to know what the laws are in your state, we have state-specific videos on our website as well. So,
yeah, and so anybody that's interested in any of that information, you can go to adoptionart.org, so adoptionart.org, and all the state resource information is there. And you can also obtain more information on all of our fellows with the different states. So I appreciate you so much. I just, we talk about, we need more people in this space. I think there's a lot more than there ever was. I mean, I've been lobbying since 2003, and I can tell you dramatically more people are working on these topics and issues. But I don't want to throw you under the bus, but I would say probably if anybody in any other states is looking at creating a similar fertility network or getting into it, I'm sure you'd probably be willing to talk to them about it. And,
Absolutely.
Model, we need more states to model this. It would make a big difference in what we do. And it's the small wins. It's not just insurance, it's definition of parentage, it's having any laws whatsoever at all on all the various things that we do. So,
and every state's legislators look at other states and what their laws are. So it is helpful to have other states advocating as well.
Correct. All right. Well, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for doing what you do. It's important, and I highly recommend, Lynn, anytime anybody has anything in the state of Georgia, you absolutely need to reach out to her. All right, my friends, thank you for joining us on this episode of Surrogacy Warrior. I hope you found it enlightening, empowering, that you want to go create your own network and start lobbying at your own legislature. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate us, leave reviews. Your feedback makes a huge difference on the future shows and what we cover. Stay connected to us on social media and, of course, my firm's website, which is lawyersforfamilies.com. Lots of resources and information there as needed. And in the meantime, remember, you're not alone in this journey. Together we are warriors. Till next time, stay strong, keep fighting for your dreams.
You've been tuning into the Surrogacy Warrior podcast with your host, Kimberly Surratt. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, 𝐿awyersforfamilies.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.